Hey, it's Anita, and this is the Anita Posch Show. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Anita Posch Show, where it is my pleasure to keep you up to date with topics around Bitcoin on a global stage and also the local impact it has on people like you and me. My guest today is a special guest because it's me. Sorry, yes, I was interviewed by Balasz Csekö. He did an interview with me for the Central European magazine. It is located in Hungary, but Balasz is also living in Vienna, but we got together online because we're still in a lockdown here. We are going to talk about the topic of how Bitcoin can support democracy, about the different aspects of Bitcoin, how blockchain is revolutionizing the global financial system, how cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin can help overcome Big Brother and surveillance by state and companies, and why every regulatory plan makes Bitcoin even stronger. As always, you can listen to this podcast in your favorite podcast player, use the Breeze wallet, use Sphinx chat app to send some sats to me, and you can also watch it on YouTube. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel. And after a short message from my sponsors, as always, enjoy. Many people worry about the right storage for their Bitcoin. And yes, holding them isn't always easy. The safest way is offline, physically. That's why Coinfinity developed the Card Wallet, the professional and easy solution. Order it now at cardwallet.com/Anita and get 20% off. Do you want to stay up to date with the things that happen in Bitcoin from my point of view? Then subscribe to Anita's Weekly, my newsletter with articles, videos, quotes, short tips on how to use Bitcoin and all that for free. Subscribe to Anita's Weekly at anita.link/weekly.
Welcome. My name is Balasz Csekö, and you are listening to the Central European Affairs Talk podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about Bitcoin and Co. shifting the paradigm, how cryptocurrencies are changing the global financial system, and how this can be productive for democracy. My guest today is Anita Posch, a cryptocurrency expert and member of board at the Austrian NGO Bitcoin Austria. She is the author of the book titled Bitcoin and Co., the translator of several books about cryptocurrencies from English to German, and she's also the host of the Anita Posch Show podcast, specializing in topics related to Bitcoin and the crypto world. Hi, Anita. Thank you so much for joining our show. It's a real pleasure to have you here and to talk to you about these things that are actually revolutionizing our world.
Hello, Balasz. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. Anita, last year has been very strange for all of us on this planet. But one of the very few positive changes, one of the lights in the darkness, has been the rise of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general. Probably most of our listeners have heard about Bitcoin, but it is still a relatively small community that really knows what it stands for and what you can do with it. Therefore, I would like to ask you first what Bitcoin means to you personally.
Yeah, I'm going back a little bit in my personal history because I'm an educated urban planner by education, actually. And so I always was interested in the peaceful and prosperous living of people together. And I think with my then professional life in the internet space, I found Bitcoin like four or 5 years ago and realized that it basically is the culmination point of all my personal interests. And I decided that I think that I can be part of a positive change if I'm going forward in educating people about Bitcoin and open blockchains. I believe that Bitcoin is the biggest chance for humanity in a way, although many people won't believe me if I say that, but a big chance for the human rights movement, for anti-corruption measurements, and for a more peaceful and especially more fair life together for all the people, because Bitcoin enables a transparent, open, permissionless exchange of value. And this exchanging value is basically a human need, and that can be satisfied by Bitcoin in a decentralized way for everyone equally around the world. And I think that's why it's such a revolutionary or the next step in money, basically, yeah.
And how can Bitcoin promote democracy, democratic values, human rights in detail?
So basically, Bitcoin is a technology that is built on mathematical rules, on which the people who are in Bitcoin, who use Bitcoin, who own Bitcoin, who use a Bitcoin wallet, who develop Bitcoin, we all decide together that those rules that have been introduced are part of a system that works with these mathematical rules, but they cannot be bent. So people who are in power or centralized organizations or whoever can't bend the rules of Bitcoin. And at the same time, it's an open permissionless system. So everybody can join. You only need a phone, and that's basically what you need. You don't need an ID, for instance. So it enables financial inclusion of billions of people who are left behind at the moment. And through its transparency, it's also a way to make corruption or enable less corruption in that way, because you take out the human greed in that case, in the form of, if you have too much power, if you feel you can play with the system, then you're doing it. But with Bitcoin and open blockchains, you can't play with them. You can't use them to your own personal advantage.
So the technology behind Bitcoin is the blockchain technology. And many people say that blockchain will revolutionize not just the financial system itself, but also politics in general, and many other aspects of our lives. How do you see this?
At the moment, I'm not so sure. I think we are not so far gone to be able to say that open blockchains will revolutionize everything. You know, I think it can't revolutionize everything, because let alone the connection between the digital blockchain, the digital value, and real life. There is always a connection that you could in any way change, you know, if you want to. But if we speak about blockchains and systems that are only in the virtual world, then yes. I mean, I was thinking about this today. I was thinking about how could Bitcoin and open blockchains also be used in a democracy to help, like, against corruption. I mean, you probably also have that in Hungary. In Austria, we hear every day from people who are getting vaccination, although they are not they don't have the, how do you say it? They should not be the next, you know, like people who are not over 80, who should not get it, already have got it. Like, for instance, mayors of some towns already got their vaccinations. And I mean, in theory, a blockchain could be used for something like that. so that nobody can say, I want to be next because I know this guy and now I'm getting my vaccine, because everybody could see who is allowed to have it, who's the next in the row or not. That's just an example.
Let's get back to government and government functions. How do you think Bitcoin can change government functions in the future?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question. That I can't answer because, that's a huge question, and we all will be involved in deciding how we are going forward here. I think on the one hand, if governments or states, nation states would embrace Bitcoin, that will put them in a good position compared to other nation states. And they can profit of the fact that it's very transparent. So people paying their tax, if it's possible to pay my tax in Bitcoin, I would do it. And it could also lead to more responsibility that has to be taken by politicians again, because you can hold them accountable for public funds. Where are they going, for instance? Bitcoin, you can audit Bitcoin and open blockchains very well. So if you're corrupt and you're paying your friends with government money, you can't do that with an open blockchain.
It's very interesting. It is very interesting that you have just mentioned taxes, because many regions, already in Europe, but also in the United States, have already announced that they are going to accept taxes, for example, in Bitcoins. So there is already this shift going on towards Bitcoin.
Yes, I hope they will see that this is a chance and not only a danger for them, And people always, or many naysayers always say, Bitcoin is not a money because you can't pay your tax in it. Yeah, I could. It just needs to be a decision that needs to be made. And I think that people would see that in a very positive way, that their government or nation state is embracing new technologies and not only going there and building a central bank digital currency, which is basically nothing new. It's just the euro in another phase, because we have a digital euro already. Most of our money is digital. So every money that's not cash is digital. And I really don't know what the positive sides for the people of a country are to use a central bank digital currency, because it basically has the same rules and the same properties as the euro has. And so I see it more as a advantage for the nation state to be able to say to the people, yeah, we know there is this Bitcoin and you sympathize with it, but we also have a cryptocurrency now, just use it, And there also the interesting fact is, of course, with those central bank digital currencies, governments could go and say, okay, now we are automatically redeeming the tax from your digital wallet because we can. Or we are imposing negative rates, interest rates now, because we just can. And also the question is surveillance, I always believed, we are here in Austria and the government is very democratic and all those kinds of things, but when you see around in the different nation states around the world, how right-wing and totalitarian, politics are growing and earning more and more fans in that way. With our history here in Austria, I feel I'm scared, And when we take a look to China, for instance, they say they are already working on, they already have their cryptocurrency, their renminbi cryptocurrency, but they also have this social credit system where they basically surveillance their people by day and by night everywhere. And if you are not following the rules of the Chinese government, then you are not allowed to buy a train ticket anymore, for instance. Yeah. So that's a danger I see too. Yeah.
So do you see the danger for Austria, for Europe to come, that, I mean, this danger of the, let's say, Chinese social credit system coming? Do you see this in Europe as well?
I don't hope that this is coming, really. I hope that we still have a lot of democratic values here, so such kind of things would not come. But if you look at the financial regulation we already have, that is very much influenced by the US, because basically I think all those Bank Secrecy Act and all those things, they come to all the other countries in the world because we are all living in this US petrodollar system. And so what we also see is with Facebook, Google, and all those big companies, more and more surveillance by companies that together with the governments, because the governments go to these companies and say, give us the records, you know. So we are living more and more in a panopticum, in a, how Shoshana Zuboff coined the term, surveillance capitalism. And basically Bitcoin and privacy coins are our way out, because Bitcoin is pseudonymous. So you can follow money flows, but you don't know really who is behind one Bitcoin address. So because you don't need an ID. And that's basically a huge chance for us to retain our privacy, and which is an important human right, basically. Yeah, because if my government knows every single small transaction I do, for instance, I don't need the government to know that I've been in a gay bar, for instance, you know, because I paid with my Visa card there, for instance, which they can know if they want to. And and that's why we have cash still. And Bitcoin basically is the only chance, I think, that we have to have a new form of cash, a digital cash that has the same properties that cash has.
And what do you think, how will Bitcoin change our lives in the future? Because Bitcoin will also have a major impact for countries in the third world and for societies living already in authoritarian systems.
Yeah, I think especially in those countries, it's important. I mean, you could argue that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies here in our Western world are really like more an investment, a speculation. But I think the bigger part of the world lives in countries that are authoritarian, that don't allow them to exchange goods or money with the world. I've been to Zimbabwe exactly 1 year ago. And I've seen what it means to live there and how people struggle and how the government takes their money away daily. You know, they have an inflation every day. The prices have to be priced out new. You know, also in Nigeria, for instance, I had 2 people on my show from Nigeria talking about their inflation they had in 2020, I think 20% inflation a year. So the money, the Nigerian naira, is melting away. And of course, they are in Africa, the country with the most use of cryptocurrencies. I think 32% of people who have, that was a survey, are using or have been using cryptocurrencies already, which is, I think, the highest percentage worldwide. And 1 or 2 weeks ago, the Nigerian government said that banks are not allowed anymore to build this bridge between crypto and the Nigerian naira. And what happened is that the interest in Bitcoin only grew. So the price has been going up because people want Bitcoin. So basically, governments can't ban Bitcoin, And also in Zimbabwe, there is a huge influx of money remittances. A lot of Zimbabweans live in the rest of the world and send money back. I've heard that $1 billion has been sent back in the last year to Zimbabwe. And I think that this is only the money they know of, because I know, for instance, I sent some Bitcoin to a friend of mine in Zimbabwe who's a school director to help them to reopen the school after COVID. So me and my listeners, we donated some Bitcoin to Zimbabwe, and this works. And with classical systems like Western Union and how they are all called, they take 20, 10, 20, 25%. It costs time, and the governments can censor it, basically, which they can't in Bitcoin. And also, very interestingly, in Zimbabwe, for instance, you have mobile money. It's called EcoCash. It's like in Kenya, but now I've lost the name. So this EcoCash, everybody has a phone and is using this EcoCash because you don't get banknotes. So you can't get cash there, the local currency. So everybody is using this, and the government is deducting 2% of every digital transaction from everyone. So equally, if you're rich or poor, you have to pay this 2%. And when I was there, I told people with Bitcoin, nobody can take your money away. It's yours. And people immediately understand what it is and how it can help them. And they do.
It's very interesting, and also it's amazing to hear that in certain parts of the world and in parts that we consider as third world, that basically Bitcoin already belongs to the everyday life, at least for a bigger part of the society than here in the West and in the so-called first world. And here in our countries, in the Western world, people still see options like Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies in general, as, with a bit of distance, because it could be a bubble, it could be something suspicious.
Yes, I mean, we shouldn't forget that the system we have is 200, 300 years old, like the banking system or the fiat system. I mean, most of us, I was born around that time when the fiat system came around in 1971, but young people don't know that there has been something else before. And so it's a big shift in the way we see money and what money is. And also, most people, including me 5 years ago, I had no idea about how our financial system is working and where money is coming from. I didn't know what the central bank does. I also didn't know how to invest in anything and all these kinds of things. Or what inflation is, what it means, that there are people who profit from that system. It never occurred to me. So we don't learn that in school. We don't learn, we are not learning basic financial education,
For a certain reason, probably.
Exactly, yeah, maybe. And so it's really hard to get your head around because Bitcoin is so much. It's not only code. It's not only a form of money. It's also there to enhance your privacy. It's possible for you to survive on it. I know somebody who's from Venezuela, and they could flee the country, so they could go from Venezuela and to live in the US, I think, because they were mining Bitcoin at home back some years ago, and it enabled them to leave the country and to send money back to their family, which otherwise they couldn't do. And so Bitcoin is so many things. It has so many aspects. that it's really hard to understand. Yeah. So that's why it takes so long. You can learn it, you can educate yourself about it, but you need, I guess, at least 1 year to understand the biggest part of it. And then I'm learning every day, still.
Anita, you have just mentioned the banks and the role of the banks in our society for hundreds of years already. So they have been around for, let's say, 500 years, the banks. How do you think the role of the banks will change in the upcoming years, thanks to the cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I think in general, banks will be like the paper media houses, they will still be here. Some of them will do the good thing, have the good idea to adapt or adopt Bitcoin early on and other cryptocurrencies. I mean, there is also in the US, banks now are allowed to handle or use cryptocurrencies. And I think it would be a good idea for them to start educating people on these possibilities, because otherwise, I'm not sure, because in Bitcoin, you don't need an intermediary. And also, we spoke about central bank digital currencies before. There's, of course, also the possibility that governments or central banks will directly send the money to the people's wallets without using banks. So then there really is the question, what's the business model of a bank in the future? Because now they are basically earning their money from the credit they give you. And they, to be honest, I don't know really what they do, because they don't hold enough money. They only, I think the fractional reserve system, I think it's 1% of the credit they give out, they have to have. And so basically they earn their money through fees from the people who need the money, and pay back all the money. And so I don't know, really.
And also the fact that the governments now, during the COVID crisis, are printing money on a larger scale than ever before. This will lead to inflation, maybe to hyperinflation. But on the other hand, this type of financial policy pushes people towards cryptocurrencies, I think.
Yes,
Do you
of
see
course.
it also this way?
Yes, because if you have a currency or a money like Bitcoin that has a fixed limited amount and cannot be inflated, and if you, for instance, live in a country and you really feel the inflation because the money is melting away. I mean, we don't feel it really because it's 2% a year. Yeah, okay. But if you extend the time frame, then you see the difference. And so I think, yes, of course, that's a fact. Why people go into cryptocurrencies? It's like people have bought gold in the years before there were cryptocurrencies. So the idea is basically the same, gold or property. And Bitcoin is, in a way, a digital form of gold, and it's also a digital property. If you imagine there is only 21 million Bitcoin, and you see it as property, then you try to secure your space on this blockchain. And so, yes, I see that people realize that it's an opportunity to, how do you say that, diversify or to minimize the risk they might be seeing, because in this financial and economical crisis, it can't be that next year everything is fine, that won't happen.
So basically, you can also secure your social status or financial status for the upcoming years by investing in Bitcoin, if I understand it well, because of the scarcity of Bitcoin.
Yes, you could think that way. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say here this is financial advice. That's not, of course, but that's the idea basically behind, and that's what many people see. Yeah.
And I think a very important step in adapting Bitcoin and Bitcoin becoming, maybe we can say mainstream, is the fact that Tesla recently invested 1.5 billion US dollars in Bitcoin. Do you see this investment as a game changer for cryptocurrencies?
Yes and no. I mean, I think Elon Musk is testing the waters because I'm not really sure if he's really a fan of Bitcoin or if he's just gambling, like in a way, yeah, testing it and also seeing maybe that this economical situation only has a downside. It doesn't have an upside in the next years. And it's also a sign, of course, if such a person with that company puts money into Bitcoin, that he doesn't trust the US dollar. But it's only a fraction of his personal wealth, you know, so he's really testing it. But on the other hand, yes, I think even more the company before, Michael Saylor from MicroStrategy, who was the first who put, I think at the beginning, $250 billion in it. I think it was 250, yeah. He then went out to educate CEOs of companies who are interested in that. So he made workshops with them. And last week, MicroStrategy put out another 900 billion, I think, in stocks or bonds, for other companies to buy a share of MicroStrategy, because those companies can't get exposure to Bitcoin because they are not allowed by the regulatory rules to buy Bitcoin themselves. So they are buying shares in MicroStrategy to be involved in the whole system. And of course, that's a big sign for people. Yeah, if somebody like Elon Musk and Tesla invest, or companies like PayPal come along, MasterCard, I think also Visa is doing something. Even JP Morgan now says, yes, Bitcoin will be this and that. So yes, that's the big difference to 2017, that we have now also big corporations and also hedge funds and investment bankers saying, yeah, maybe Bitcoin is an option. Yeah. So that's definitely a sign.
And also the other day, Bitcoin surpassed this 1 trillion US dollar market cap. And currently it is already the 8th most valuable asset,
Exactly.
right behind Google. Alphabet.
Yes. So with Bitcoin, you not only have an instrument that enables you to exchange value freely, even if you're not rich, you know, because you can use like 50 euros in Bitcoin or 10 euros also, and to exchange that freely. So it's on a way, in a way, it's leveling the gaps between people, you know, because if you're rich or poor, you have the same tool you can use the same tool. And I think that's a great idea, philosophy, and principle, and is democratizing the access to money. And we never had that before.
And well, critics claim that cryptocurrencies are used for illegal activities, and some even say that Bitcoin is a fraud. What is your opinion on these claims?
The good thing and the bad thing at the same time with those companies who analyze the blockchain is that you can also see how many Bitcoin transactions, or the volume that has been used for so-called illegal activities. And Chainalysis has shown the results in the last month. It's 0.35% of all transactions, or the transaction volume in Bitcoin, is used for illegal activities. And to be honest, I think the fines that the Deutsche Bank or JP Morgan had to pay for money laundering were larger. And you can do illicit activities with cash, with US dollars, with any, you know, so that's not really an argument for me, because it's not about that. And Bitcoin a fraud? I mean, I think you can only say that if you did not study it well enough. Because if you understand a little bit of code or follow the developments in the last 11 years, and there are, I think maybe it's also a mistake because there have been many scams, so that's sadly true, because many people want to ride that wave and scam other people with Bitcoin. I don't know what that's a name, Bitcoin code, for instance, or another time OneCoin was a huge fraud. And I've also seen that in Africa, most people are scared and see it as a fraud because there have been these scams. So it's really another reason to do more and more and more education to tell people how Bitcoin really works, how the technology works, because if you understand how it works, you know it's not a fraud. So yes, that's basically my answer, is education.
And recently also the cryptocurrencies have become the center of attention for many regulators. What do you think, in which way could cryptocurrencies be regulated?
I think they are very regulated already, because the on-ramps and the off-ramps, meaning when I want to use my euros and have Bitcoin in exchange, and I go to an online exchange to exchange the money there, I have to do my Know Your Customer identification process. That's the same basically that I have to do when I go to a bank and open a bank account. So the on and off ramps are already regulated. They also try to regulate more and put the same measurements on cryptocurrencies like on fiat money. But the thing is that Bitcoin basically is a cryptographic defense mechanism in a way, and the developers are finding ways. So basically, it's a cat and mouse game, Bitcoin will always be the mouse, and the governments will be the cat that's trying to catch the mouse, but they won't be able to catch it. So, and on the other hand, I hope that with Bitcoin and also this education on the principles of privacy and human rights and against more and more surveillance, I hope that also the society and people will learn that it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, I feel it's weird that regulators and banks and those banks often are over-regulating. So they have more checks in place as the regulator actually is asking them. And what we've seen, for instance, with WhatsApp and Facebook in the last months was that a lot of people suddenly switched to Signal because they realized that they are being gamed, that Facebook basically does what they want and sell their data, and more people learn that. And I also think that the education or knowledge from Bitcoin helps here, because we, and I say we, I mean some people from the Bitcoin space and me, we try to tell people how does it come that we are basically that we have to prove that our 1,000 euro come from my job or something like that, We are not all bad, We are good people. And so I think this over-regulation costs a lot of money, and it excludes so many people from the system, and that's not okay.
Anita, you have already mentioned that certain countries have already tried to ban Bitcoin, to put severe restrictions on Bitcoin. Do you think, on the other hand, it actually produced the opposite effect what probably governments wanted to achieve. So even more support to the cryptocurrencies. Do you think a worldwide ban is possible, or there is nothing that could stop Bitcoin anymore?
No, I don't think that a worldwide ban is possible, because they can't even agree on measurements to help the planet, they can't even agree on climate goals, however that is called, but you know what I mean. So how do you think that they will agree on a ban? There will be so many countries, if it's small countries, bigger countries, who say, okay, if you're banning it, I'm going to start to mine Bitcoin. There are mines in Pakistan already, for instance, in Iran, in the Ukraine, in Kazakhstan, in North America, in China, of course. Do you really think that they will give that up? I don't think so. I think it will be the other way around. There will be a government publicly saying, yes, we have Bitcoin, maybe this year, next year. But I think actually this will be the way. And as you said, every new rule that wants to ban Bitcoin makes it stronger. It's like with those, how is it called? The Streisand effect on social networks, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And before we conclude the talk, I still wanted to ask you about your prediction regarding our financial system, let's say in the upcoming 15, 20 years. How will it look like? Now we are in the year 2021, let's say in 2040, 2045. How will our financial system, global financial system, look like?
What a big question. I can't really answer that, but I guess, if I think back 20 years, I think there still were people who said the internet won't be here much longer. And we are basically around that time. So 1995, 1997 is about that, what's happening at the moment with Bitcoin. And so I think we cannot really imagine what is going to happen, because like in 1995, you couldn't imagine something like the iPhone, where suddenly everybody has a high efficient computer in his pocket, And my guess in a way is that Bitcoin and the fiat system, if it doesn't break down completely, will live together for quite a long time. But with the network effect in Bitcoin, it's getting stronger and stronger, and I think it's a wave, you can't stop that anymore. So let's say 30% of Nigerians have used cryptocurrencies. Might be that a part of them is disillusioned because they might have lost money or something like that. But I think an equal amount of people will see what hard money is, that nobody can take away from you. And what are they going to do? They will tell their family and their friends. And that's a reinforcing mechanism that you cannot stop. And so I think that Bitcoin adoption will only grow, be faster, and also the developments are never stopped. Bitcoin is in permanent development. So, okay.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Anita, for this very, very informative talk about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general. As you have just mentioned, these currencies are here to stay, and they will help us, the normal people, if we can put it, to promote democracy, human rights, equality, and this on a global scale. So it was a very, very interesting talk. Thank you so much for joining us, and wishing you all the best.
Yeah, thank you. You're very much welcome. And there's a last thing I want to say. If you don't believe me, Please listen to my podcast. I have got interviews with the feminist coalition from Nigeria, with developers living in Ghana and Nigeria, with this headmistress of the school in Zimbabwe. It's very interesting to hear them talk about how Bitcoin really helps them and how they are using it. So you don't have to believe me alone.
That's it. So, dear listeners, as you have just heard it, the Anita Posch Show, you have to visit the website, and there you can find already over 100 podcast episodes. Anita, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Balasz, and have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining the Anita Posch Show today to learn more about Bitcoin. You can find the show notes for this conversation on anita.link/show. If you want to get the best stories in Bitcoin from my point of view in your mailbox, go to anita.link/weekly and subscribe. And if you have a question or just want to send me some feedback, drop me a line at hello@anitaposch.com. See you next week when it's time for the Anita Posch Show. Music, start with yes, delicate beats. Content, idea and production, Anita Posch.